lesson today is about the arts of the Renaissance period and Baroque period. Renaissance was the period of economic progress. The period stirred the enthusiasm for the study of ancient philosophy and artistic values. The word Renaissance comes from the word renaitre, which means rebirth. It pertains to arts, particularly in Italy, such as sculptures, paintings, music, architecture, and literature. Italian Renaissance began in the late 14th century. It was an era of great artistic and intellectual achievements with the birth of secular art. The focus was on realistic and humanistic art. Renaissance was characterized by accurate anatomy, scientific perspective, and deeper landscape. The Renaissance painters depicted real-life figures of their sculptures or naturalistic portraits of human beings. The architecture during this period was characterized by its symmetry and balance. The Renaissance was a period of artistic experimentation. It brought man into a full view, just like the human figure in Greek art. Baroque period. The term Baroque was derived from the Portuguese word Barroco, which means irregularly shaped pearl or stone. It describes a fairly complex idiom and focuses on painting, sculpture, as well as architecture. The arts of the Baroque period are more elaborate and full of emotion. Although always in conflict with single, clear, and geometric concepts of classicism, the Baroque existed in varying degrees of intensity, from a simple animated movement of lights and surfaces to a rich and dynamic wealth. Baroque was a period of artistic styles in exaggerated motion, drama, tension, and grandeur. The style started in Rome, Italy, and spread to most of the Europe. Artists. Michelangelo di Lodovico Buonarroti Simoni. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. He was considered the greatest living artist in his lifetime, and ever since then, he was considered as one of the greatest artists of all time. A number of his works in paintings, sculpture, and architecture rank among the famous in existence. Among his outstanding works as sculptor were the following: Pieta, Bacchus, Moses, David, Dying Slave, Dawn, and Dusk. Two of his best-known works, the Pieta and David, were sculpted before he turned 30. He also created two of the most influential works in fresco in the history of Western art: the scenes from Genesis on the ceiling and the Last Judgment on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in Rome. Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, scientist, and mathematician. He was popularized in present times through the novel and movie Da Vinci Code. He is known as the ultimate Renaissance man because of his intellect, interests, talent, and his expression of humanist and classical values. He is widely considered to be one of the greatest painters of all time and perhaps the most diversely talented person to have ever lived. Well-known works were The Last Supper, It is the most reproduced religious painting of all time, and the Mona Lisa, the most famous and most parodied portrait. His other works were the Vitruvian Mar, the Adoration of the Magi, and the Virgin of the Rocks. Mona Lisa stems from a description by Renaissance art historian Giorgio Vasari, who wrote, Leonardo undertook to paint for Francisco del Giocondo the portrait of Mona Lisa, his wife. Mona, in Italian, is a polite form of address originating as Madonna, similar to ma'am, madame, or my lady in English. This became Madonna and its contraction Mona. The title of the painting, though traditionally spelled Mona, is also commonly spelled in modern Italian as Monna Lisa. Raffaello Sanzio da Orvieto. Raphael was an Italian painter and architect of the High Renaissance period. His work was admired for its clarity of form and ease of composition, and for its visual achievement of the interpreting the divine and incorporating the Christian doctrines. Together with Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, he formed the traditional trinity of great masters of that period. His main contributions to art were his unique craftsmanship and compositional skills. His famous works were the Sistine Madonna, the School of Athens, and the Transfigurations. Donato di Niccolo di Beto Bardi, also known as Donatello. Donatello was one of the Italian great artists of the period. He was an early Renaissance Italian sculptor from Florence. He is known for his work in bas-relief, a form of shallow relief sculpture. His works included the following statues in relief: the David, statue of Saint George, equestrian monument of Guatemala. Renaissance art is the art of calm and beauty. Its creations are perfect. They reveal nothing forced or inhibited, uneasy or agitated. Each form has been born easily, free, and complete. Everything breathes satisfaction, and we are surely not mistaken in seeing in this heavenly calm and content the highest artistic expression and spirit of that age. At the time it was created, it was the first known freestanding nude statue produced ancient times. Famous Baroque artists: Michelangelo Merisi, or Amerigi da Caravaggio. He was better known as Caravaggio. He was an Italian artist who wanted to deviate from the classical masters of the Renaissance. He was an outcast in his society because of his own actions and the lack of modesty and reverence for religious subjects in his own paintings. Perhaps he started out as a specialist in his paintings of still life, especially of fruits. Studies of single figures follow, but they are clumsier than the fruit, which gives their savor of originality and charm. Caravaggio's models at this period were either himself or young persons who have an air of being promising but wicked. Among his famous paintings were Supper at Emmaus, Conversion of St. Paul, and Entombment of Christ. Gian Lorenzo Bernini. Bernini was an Italian artist and the first Baroque artist. He practiced architecture and sculpture, painting, stage design, and was also a playwright. He was also the last in the list of the dazzling universal geniuses. As a prodigy, his first artworks date from his 8th birthday. Among his early works were the goat Amalthea with infant Jupiter and Fawn, Damned Soul, and the Blessed Soul. He made a sculpture of David for Cardinal Borghese, which is strikingly different from Michelangelo's David because it shows the differences between Renaissance and Baroque periods. He was the greatest Baroque sculptor and architect, as seen in his design of the Piazza San Pietro in front of the Basilica. It is one of his most innovative and successful architectural designs. The famous Ecstasy of Saint Teresa was his greatest achievement, and the colonnade of the Piazza of St. Peter's, Rome. Peter Paul Rubens. Rubens was a Flemish Baroque painter. He was well known for his paintings of mythical and figurative subjects, landscapes, portraits, and Counter-Reformation altarpieces. His commissioned works were mostly religious subjects, history paintings of his magical creatures, and hunt scenes. His famous works were Samson and Delilah, Landscape with a Tower, Portrait of Healing Format, and the Three Graces. Rembrandt Harmenzoon van Rijn. Rembrandt was a brilliant Dutch realist, painter, and etcher. He is generally considered as one of the greatest painters and printmakers in European art. He followed no particular faith, but was interested in spiritual values and often chooses religious subjects. Rembrandt shares with Rubens the revolution whereby painting came to depict the more personal aspects of the painter, his own home and his family. No artist has painted himself as often as did Rembrandt. His concept of himself continued to deepen in grasp and subtlety, while his technique grew more daring. His well-known work was his self-portrait in old age. Rembrandt had produced over 600 paintings, nearly 400 etchings, and 2,000 drawings. Diego Velázquez. Velázquez of Spain developed out of the Baroque. He was one of the finest masters of composition and one of the most important painters of the Spanish Golden Age. He worked out solutions to pictorial problems of design that transcend the style of any period. Velázquez was the case of a painter who discovered his avocation almost at the very start of his career. The passion for still life frequently emerges in Velázquez art. His famous works were The Surrender of Breda, Las Meninas, or The Maids of Honor, Los Barachos, The Drinker, and Maria Theresa. He created this work 4 years before his death and served as an outstanding example of the European Baroque period of art. Margaret Theresa, the eldest daughter of the new queen, appears to be the subject of Las Meninas, but in looking at the various viewpoints of the painting, it was unclear as to who or what was the true subject. It may be the royal daughter or the painter himself. Many European cathedrals have Baroque features, high altars, facades, and chapels. Baroque aims to give an effect that wants to carry the viewers away with the force of its impact. It gives not a generally enhanced vitality but excitement, ecstasy, and intoxication. Its impact was intended to be momentary, while that of the Renaissance was slower but more enduring, making the viewers want to linger forever in the presence. The Baroque required broad, heavy, massive forms. Elegant proportions disappeared and buildings tended to become heavier until sometimes the forms were almost crushed by the pressure. The grace and lightness of the Renaissance were gone. All forms become broader and heavier. By the end of the 15th century, Rome had displaced Florence as the principal center of Renaissance art, reaching a high point under the powerful and ambitious Pope Leo X. The three great masters, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, dominated the period known as the High Renaissance. The Baroque period in art history came directly after the Renaissance. Mass and movement are the principles of the Baroque style. It did not aim for perfection or the beauty of craft, but rather focused on an event. Artworks from this era showed exaggerated emotions on the portrayed experience. Exaggeration can be seen in forms, gesture,